what's the most dad thing you could remember growing up with your father? Did he teach you how to drive? Do you remember camping with him? Like what were some of those things that's kind of behind the curtain? Because I mean, a lot of the talking points you get asked every day on the different organizations you get asked to speak on, but take us behind the curtain a little bit more of what it was like growing up in your house, and what are some of the memories you have?
I have a lot, and it's actually, this is a great format to actually talk about them on, because most of the time you've got a 2-minute clip and you can't really elaborate. But, Donald Trump is obviously a very different type of father. He's a guy who, worked tremendously hard. At the same time, he never, I told you a story about Luke before, Luke and Carolina, my kids, no matter where I am in the world, no matter who I'm with, I don't care who I'm with, I will step aside and say our little prayers before they go to bed. All right. It's just, that's religion to me. And it's, both kind of metaphorically and just, no matter where we were, if we called his office, it didn't matter who he had in his office. It could be the mayor of New York. It could be, didn't matter. We were put through on his line, and I remember one time specifically, Rudy Giuliani, right? America's mayor, him probably, I'm sure, very well. And I called up the office, and, he was in my father's office, and Eric, say hi to, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, how are you? Mr. Giuliani, how are you doing? It didn't matter who he was with. He always had time to take his kids' calls, and he would never miss them. So that's really one thing that I really, admire. It was less of kind of a relationship of playing catch. It was more a relationship, every time we could, we'd walk, one of the real estate projects, we would walk a building. So you'd have Trump Tower that was being built, right? And you've got 70 stories of steel going up. And we'd be walking some random floor, and, he'd be talking to the foreman, and I can't tell you how many lessons I learned from doing that. I was a young little kid. I thought this was the coolest thing in the world. These buildings were bigger than life. You're watching steel fly through the air and concrete and everything else. But I remember one time we go up and there was a piece of asbestos, of all things, that they were moving from a project, right? And, it was a renovation of a project. And my father goes, asbestos, how is that? And I'll never forget the foreman. It's horrible for you. It's horrible for, obviously, right? It causes all sorts of problems, which is why we don't have a society. But I'll never forget, and I remember this as a kid, sir, it's the best fireproofing, in the world. There's just nothing that even remotely compares. And he pulls out an acetylene torch that was there, and he puts it on this piece of asbestos. And the guy's holding a torch there that's a couple thousand degrees on this piece of asbestos, is hardly turning the color, right? I mean, it was unbelievable. And then, at the same time, they had some of the, fireproofing that they spray on metal beams, and they put the torch on there, and 30 seconds later, it's bubbling up. And obviously you can't use asbestos for all the reasons we know. But it was just little lessons like that, kind of, I'll never forget, walking to construction sites, being on bulldozers. And it was really amazing. He always took us with him. We were always allowed to play in his office. No matter how serious the meeting was, we'd play with Legos on his office floor. A great father, and again, high expectations. You better work. And you're going to work for your keep, and you're going to get good grades in school, and you're going to behave. And, at the same time, he wasn't so handsy that you didn't have your own individual freedom. And I always respected that about him.